Sherp ATV. Watching this thing in action almost feels fake, like someone edited a vehicle climbing straight out of a lake in slow motion. But there is no trick here, just one of the strangest all-terrain machines ever built. So how does something this big float, swim, and crawl through mud that swallows normal trucks whole? The secret is in the tires. They are nearly 5 feet tall and run at almost no pressure, which lets them squish around obstacles instead of fighting them. Those same oversized tires double as the vehicle's flotation system, so there is no separate boat hull hiding underneath. Built in Russia for the brutal terrain of Siberia, the Sherp was designed to go anywhere a normal vehicle simply could not survive. Oil crews, rescue teams, and explorers now rely on it in places where getting stuck is not an option. It looks slow and almost clumsy, but that clumsiness is exactly why it never gets left behind. Mud truck. Some vehicles try to avoid deep mud. This one drives straight into it, on purpose, and somehow comes out the other side still moving. What makes a truck capable of surviving terrain that would trap almost anything else? It starts with tires the size of small boulders, covered in deep, paddle-shaped treads built to dig through thick mud rather than slide across it. Underneath, the truck sits lifted several feet into the air, keeping the engine and electronics far away from the mess below. Locking differentials send power evenly to every wheel, so one spinning tire never wastes the engine's effort. This entire culture took root across the rural southern United States, where mud bogging became as much a weekend sport as it is a test of raw mechanical power. Snowmobile. Before this machine existed, deep snow simply meant staying home for months at a time across huge parts of the world. So, how did people finally learn to move fast across terrain no wheel could touch? The answer came from a Canadian inventor named Joseph Armand Bombardier, who spent years building machines that could glide across frozen ground instead of getting buried in it. The modern snowmobile uses 2 skis up front for steering and a wide rubber track at the back that spreads its weight across the snow instead of sinking into it. Today, these machines split into 2 very different worlds. Some are racing machines built for speed across frozen lakes, while others are deep powder mountain sleds built to climb steep, ungroomed slopes most people would never dare to walk up. In remote northern towns, this is still the only practical way to get anywhere once winter takes over. Amphibious vehicle. Picture a truck driving straight off a boat ramp and into open water, never once slowing down or sinking. So, how does a vehicle built for roads suddenly become capable of crossing a lake? The answer comes down to a sealed hull hidden beneath the body, paired with a propeller or water jet that takes over once the wheels lose contact with solid ground. For most of the past century, the military pushed this technology forward, since landing troops and supplies directly onto a beach without needing a dock offered a massive tactical advantage. Outside the military, these vehicles found a second life in tourism, with amphibious buses now driving guests through city streets before rolling straight into a river without anyone leaving their seat. Few machines blur the line between boat and vehicle as completely as this one does. Rock bouncer. At first glance, this looks less like a vehicle and more like a metal skeleton with tires bolted on. But that stripped-down design is exactly what lets it bounce across boulders most trucks would get destroyed trying to cross. So why would anyone build something this exposed and seemingly fragile? The answer is weight, or rather the lack of it. By removing nearly everything except the frame, engine, and massive suspension travel, builders created a machine light enough to launch off rocks and land without snapping in half. Born out of competitive rock racing in the American Southwest, these buggies are built almost entirely by hand, with no two ever quite the same. Ripsaw EV2. This is less a vehicle and more a small tank that somehow ended up available to civilians. So how does something this heavy still manage to outrun sports cars across open terrain? The Ripsaw EV2 runs on rubber tracks instead of wheels, the same basic idea used by military vehicles, but tuned here for speed instead of armor. Underneath its aggressive shape sits a massive engine capable of pushing this multi-ton machine to highway speeds, even while crossing rough, broken ground. It was originally developed with military testing in mind, exploring how track-based vehicles could move faster without sacrificing the stability tracks are known for. Eventually, A civilian version made its way into private hands, turning what was essentially a battlefield concept into one of the strangest high-performance toys money can buy. Dune Buggy. Long before extreme off-roading became its own industry, people were already chasing speed across sand, using nothing more than a stripped-down car and a good set of tires. So how did a beach toy from the 1960s become a lasting icon of off-road culture? It started in California, where builders took old Volkswagen Beetle frames, stripped away the heavy steel body, and replaced it with light fiberglass shells. The rear-mounted engine pressed weight directly over the back wheels, giving it exactly the traction needed on loose sand. These machines quickly became a symbol of coastal freedom, showing up everywhere from beaches to classic films of the era. Over time, manufacturers refined the formula with better suspension and stronger frames, letting buggies tackle steeper dunes than the originals ever could. Gibbs Quadski. This looks like an ordinary ATV, right until it drives straight into a lake and keeps going without slowing down. So how exactly does a four-wheeler turn into a jet ski in just seconds? The wheels on the Quadski actually retract upward into the body once it hits the water, transforming the entire vehicle into a fully functional personal watercraft. A jet propulsion system instantly takes over, pushing it across the surface the same way a jet ski would. Engineers spent years solving one major problem with amphibious vehicles: the painfully slow and clunky transition between land and water. The Quadski was built specifically to make that switch almost instant, with no stopping, no separate equipment, and no waiting around on the shoreline. Sand rail. Strip away every unnecessary part of a vehicle, leave nothing but a metal frame, an engine, and four wheels, and you end up with one of the rawest machines built for sand. So why would anyone want a vehicle with absolutely nothing covering it? The answer is speed and weight, since removing the body entirely makes the entire machine dramatically lighter and easier to control across loose dunes. Most sand rails are custom-built rather than factory-made, often powered by motorcycle engines mounted toward the rear to keep traction over the driven wheels. Unlike slower rock-crawling machines, sand rails are built purely for speed. The culture around them is deeply hands-on, filled with builders who spend as much time welding in a garage as they do actually driving. Because every rail is custom-made, no two ever look quite the same, which is exactly the point. Argo Avenger. This 8-wheeled machine looks like it crawled straight out of a swamp, and that is almost exactly what it was built to do. So what makes a vehicle confident enough to drive directly into water without slowing down even slightly? All 8 wheels work together, skidding the vehicle through turns on land, while doubling as a propulsion system once it reaches water. There is no separate motor or propeller needed. Originally developed in Canada for hunters and outdoor workers needing to cross terrain too wet and unstable for normal trucks, it quickly built a reputation for going almost anywhere without hesitation. This machine treats every type of terrain exactly the same way, like it simply does not matter. Trophy truck. At first it looks like an oversized pickup truck, until it launches off a desert hill at highway speed and somehow lands without falling apart. So how does something this massive stay controllable while flying through the air? The answer lies in suspension travel that can stretch over 3 feet in each direction, letting the wheels absorb impacts that would destroy almost any other vehicle instantly. Inside the cab, drivers feel a strange kind of smoothness, even while the wheels underneath are taking a brutal beating from the terrain. These trucks were built specifically for races like the Baja 1000, events that push machines and drivers alike across hundreds of miles of unpredictable desert. Teams behind them spend millions perfecting every detail, because at these speeds, a single mechanical failure can end a race instantly. Watching one of these machines fly across a dune at full speed makes it easy to forget it started life looking like an ordinary truck. Hagglunds BV206. 2 connected vehicle sections, both covered in tracks, moving together like some kind of mechanical caterpillar. So why would anyone design a vehicle that bends in the middle instead of staying rigid? The answer comes down to extreme terrain, since the articulated joint lets each section flex independently, keeping both halves planted on uneven, broken, or frozen ground. Built originally for the Swedish military to operate across deep snow and frozen tundra, it was designed to go where wheeled vehicles simply could not function reliably. Today it remains in use by militaries and rescue teams working in some of the coldest, most unforgiving environments on the planet. It does not look fast or elegant, but in conditions that destroy normal vehicles within minutes, this strange bending machine just keeps moving forward.